What about when the parent goes no contact with the adult child? Toward the end of 2025, I think it was the end of 2025, a book came out about no contact and estrangement. And then there were a lot of big names, influencer types talking about no contact and estrangement and offering their take on it. Basically, it was a lot of conde. Do you really need to go no contact? You may regret it with little regard for the idea that most people who go no contact don't get there lightly, have tried everything to make the relationship workable, and often carry grief and heaviness. Now that's not to say that there are people out there who do feel better after no contact. They really, really do. But it's not just easy peasy and a person just happily walking off into the sunset. Lots of experts and pundits view no contact as merely an avoidance strategy, very rarely stopping to ask what would lead someone to never want any contact with someone again, who was once an instrumental person in their lives. Some of the classical areas of no contact, or the classical I know methods or ways of no contact, are people going no contact with people in their life who behave like grifters, are extortionate, manipulative, harmful with people who abuse them as children, and were never willing to be accountable, or from the people who were around the abuse and will never be accountable. It can be situations no contact can follow. Situations where devastatingly important information was withheld and caused permanent ruptures and trust. When people go no contact, it is often for types of life-changing betrayal that leave a person never quite feeling safe in the world again. And having had to wade through years or decades of doing repair by themselves and no accountability from the people involved in the harm. But there are also people who use no contact manipulatively. That is true. In fact, narcissistic and antagonistic people are world-class at being no contact punishers. If you set a boundary with them, they go no contact. You don't forgive them, they go no contact. You don't go along with what they want, they go no contact. They want to punish you, they go no contact. In fact, the sort of weaponized, victimized, I'll show you what life's like without me. That kind of no contact that's typically done by either emotionally stunted and immature people or downright antagonistic people. And in those cases, it's not about lack of repair or safety, but a big adult tantrum. I do think that some of the people out there who are going online about no contact is bad, and screw all of you for being okay with it. My guess is some of them may have had that kind of experience. But it's important to understand the differences in no contact. We're putting it all in one stew, but there's a lot of variation in this. Most people go no contact, not because it's a tantrum or a tactic, but in order to heal and feel safe, and because the behavior of the abuser or the problem person is just not changing. In some cases, no contact between an adult child and parent may happen because of the insertion of a narcissistic spouse. For example, your adult child with whom you had a fine relationship with marries someone who has narcissistic traits, and for example, the antagonistic, manipulative daughter-in-law or son-in-law is the one who is spearheading the no-contact experience. And obviously this can be really difficult if grandchildren are involved, but also this is also now negatively affected your relationship with your own child. Clears throat and cough. And yes, in some cases, the adult child is narcissistic and goes no contact with their parents as a tactic to punish the parents because they chronically feel misunderstood and position themselves as a victim because they feel the parents owe them something. Now, in this case, the adult child may not be engaging in the no contact for protection per se, but actually to really punish the parents, sometimes to even extort something from them, money, other forms of support, or is just consistent with a sort of a persecuted narrative or with vindictive, resentful patterns that we see in narcissistic people. In these cases, the parents don't want to go no contact and the adult child knows it. And as a result, the adult child's threats of no contact. And like I said, this can be very magnified if grandchildren are involved, is enough to get parents to relent, to give more money and silence themselves. In some of these cases, and maybe even more than some of these cases, the parent may blame themselves. They may look back and feel bad that they stayed in a bad relationship, or because of an unhealthy custody setup, or because there were other struggles, or because they feel they weren't there for their child. And in that self-blame by the parent may believe what their adult narcissistic child is saying and continually relent to their demands, and also be quite, they might give in. They become quite pliable, manipulatable, if you will, when the no contact is threatened or actually done. So in general, a lot, if not most of the conversation about so-called no contact is about the adult child towards their parent or step-parent or other family members. And for many of the reasons that I have already shared, an adult child feeling there was no path forward to repair, an unrepeatable betrayal by the parent or family member, not feeling the parent is safe, or the parent continues to deny prior experiences of the adult child, the parent continuing to be manipulative or simply psychologically harmful, not wanting the parent or other family member around their own children. However, what we often don't talk about is when the no contact is actually from the parent or another parental figure towards an adult child. because this does happen, and it is a variant that doesn't happen as often, but it does happen. So what could that look like? A parent going no contact with the adult child. Well, the most classical example of protective no contact is a parent who may be scared of or concerned about the behavior of an adult child, who may be manipulative, who may be taking financial advantage, who may constantly be saying things like, "You owe me, you were never there for me, you're the reason I am like this," and never taking any responsibility for their own adult lives. So the parent may actually cut off contact to keep themselves safe, to keep other people in the family system safe. This may sometimes happen also in the cases where there may be a co-occurring issue. An example could be an addiction. This may also be an adult child who is putting other family members at risk. For example, their own siblings, the siblings of the adult child, or other extended family members or children that are part of the family system. Protective no contact that is initiated by a parent towards their adult children is much more likely to happen when their child is on the antagonism spectrum. Malignant narcissism, sometimes vulnerable narcissism, even patterns like sociopathy and psychopathy. The entitled, manipulative, exploitative, at times sadistic stuff that can result in financial abuse, elder abuse, and even physical danger. Other issues such as an unwillingness by that adult child to engage in treatment, but continuing to act out can also drive this kind of no contact from parent to child. And often things have to get quite bleak and even some real harm already done before parents will do this. This is more rare. Parent-to-child no contact is more rare. Obviously, healthy or even healthy adjacent parents in general want to be there for their children, and parents in general don't want to quit their kids. Like I said, it is more rare, obviously it happens. But there is one more twist to this, and that is the narcissistic slantagonistic parent or older family member who goes no contact with an adult child. This is the parent who very likely during the adult child's own childhood may have given their child the silent treatment, expected their child to read their mind, and basically subjugated their child in all the ways that a narcissistic parent does that. This is the parent who jumps on every perceived slight, still expects their adult child to center this narcissistic parent in their life, rages at their adult child who is becoming autonomous or independent, and may even attempt to foster a dependency in their adult child, either by telling the adult child or treating the adult child like they are incompetent or somehow undesirable. So the adult child may really feel hamstrung and lack the confidence to strive professionally or build any kind of intimate relationships. This also can look like telling the adult child that the child owes them something, or even telling them that in childhood that the child owes them something, and that this parent gave up so much for the child. The parent may even foster a literal financial dependency. They may do this by bringing the child into a family business, but not giving them sufficient autonomy within it, or offering to invest into a business of the child, but constantly reminding the adult child that they did so, or offering to pay rent or help with a home purchase only as long as it keeps the adult child close, discouraging the child from pursuing higher education, or something that might even give them employment opportunities. It's usually about control and keeping the adult child in the same subjugated position they were always in when they were a minor child. And the adult child may still be dealing with people on the outside or, in the extended family, making observations like, "Wow, your family is so close-knit," etc., etc. Now, in these kinds of narcissistic parent scenarios, the parent may punish the adult child who may, for example, want to move away or not be in the family business or not want to live nearby or marry who the parent wants them to, or merely just doesn't want to call that narcissistic parent every day. And the adult narcissistic parent may punish the child by going no contact. The reason that this no contact conversation is so fraught is that it shows up in these many different forms, largely sort of protective forms of no contact and punitive forms of no contact. And obviously part of that is what side of the no contact you're on. And we mush them up and treat them as though they're the same. They really aren't. We also assume that the story is always about disgruntled kids towards their parent, and it's not. When we try to boil the no contact conversation to a simple narrative, but it's always bad. It's always the ungrateful adult child who will regret it someday. We miss the nuance of this decision. We may shame people who agonized for a very long time and tried so many things before they made this decision. And to do this doesn't do anyone any favors. Yes, antagonism is often a feature of the no contact scenario. And yes, sometimes it is avoidance, but there is no formula. And we have to stop believing any of this is simple. So when you hear a no contact story and you don't have all the details, it may not be as simple as, "Oh, what a shame. They may regret it someday." They also may not. It may actually be allowing the person who went no contact to get to a healthier place. In some cases, we'll see a case of estrangement that was initiated by a narcissistic person who's doing it because they didn't get their way. and the other people in the family finally said, fine, then just go no contact with us, doesn't mean people aren't hurt. And even the people who may go no contact for the most protective reasons have gotten to a point where instead of self-abandonment, they have found that they may have to literally step away from systems that they wanted desperately to belong to, but to belong to them meant to be unsafe, and having to navigate these spaces where love and the loss of safety coexist when it gets to a certain point. Some people do have to step away, and painting all of these scenarios with the same brush of arrangement is bad. And I have a story, my story. I don't care about your story. When people find that they came to this decision and for the first time they're feeling safe in their lives, we do have to hear it. But it's not always the children towards the parents. Sometimes for both protective and punitive reasons, it's the parents who are the ones who turn on that no contact switch. Thanks again.